And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
All right, attention roll call. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the finest Unfiltered. So we had a couple of things on the news front. I didn't speak to Eric yesterday, only via text. Like I said, he'd probably be out like another week or so. You know, he's healing. His healing process is going well. So you know, we miss him. We can't wait for him to come back. So shout out to Eric Dim. Other thing, last night was the last night of the 10-4 Tavern on the finest Unfiltered. They had to sunset the show, unfortunately. I know Marlon, you got a chance to join them. I know Ron and Rob are on there. Chief Marino was on there. I was out at the movie premiere of Duty to Disobey. I was trying to get in. It just went a little longer than I thought it would. And it just didn't go that long. But I think a big hit to the network. You know, we'll keep rocking out. You know, we'll try to fill that void however we could. I'm not sure that we'll be able to. But yeah, we're definitely gonna miss them. So shout out to Tom Joyce, shout out to Pete Forcelli. You know, they said heavyweights in law enforcement, and obviously we'll keep running clips of a lot of the shows. There are a lot of great shows. All the episodes will remain up on the finest Unfiltered, and hopefully at a time they'll be able to come back. So you know, how was last night, Marlon? I didn't get to watch all of it. I got in real late last night, and I watched most of it, I think.
Yeah, morning guys. Morning chat. Yeah, it was a good show. You know, just reminiscing about the job and the guests that were on. Yeah, and I echo John's comments. I mean, we're gonna miss the show. I think you know, I said it before that there are a lot of stories to be told of, especially of the prior generations that are no longer on the job and that are getting up there in age as well. Remember, right now we have a generation of cops on the job who were never there when Kelly was there. Some of them probably haven't even heard of Chief Anemone. I mean, I heard about Chief Anemone because there were still some old timers on the job when I came on, and you know, so this new generation of cops are like Gen Zers, and you know, in fact, in a couple more years, I think we should be at alphas, no? But again, the point is that these new generations have never heard of these names, and it's good to have a show like the Tavern that these old voices could come back on and you know, talk about the city back in you know, in a different time, and about you know, and about their experiences in law enforcement during the 80s and the 90s. So we're gonna miss the Tavern, and you know, we appreciate what Pete and Tom brought to the network, and you know, how they broadened our scope. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, it was you know, I think it was a sad evening last night on Finance Unfiltered. So I was you know, apologies, I couldn't make it on there. Actually headed down to the Jersey Shore a little later today. So me and Nolan will be hanging out together. You know, so he put in the chat that he's gonna be down there too. So but I'm not telling you where I am, Nolan. So I don't want to talk shop. You know.
yeah. Morning,
So,
Stephen S.
yeah.
Yeah, just to you know, just to go back on what John said about Eric. I spoke to Eric yesterday. He's doing well, but he's still in a lot of pain, and his voice, you know, his voice is gonna need time to recover. So I think he's probably, I'd say maybe another 2 weeks he might be gone. But yeah, I told him to slow down and, you know, take time to just get better. So,
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be here. I mean, we'll be here. So we're not going nowhere. So, like once I get back to Florida in a couple of weeks, we'll start having some guests back on too. I just been real bad at scheduling. I've been like running constantly. It's like I've been doing more work retired away from my normal routines of life with my kids off school than I do I do when I was working. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of things came out since we last spoke on Monday, and I think one of the bigger things, and we've been touching on it for a real long time, is the budget. And New York City's budget obviously gets approved yesterday. I believe it's a complete failure and shows you that doesn't matter who the mayor is. It doesn't matter who's the speaker of city council. They're all doing one thing, and they're keeping the corruption and the grift alive. And I don't know if it's because they're in on it or they're just extremely incompetent. But either way, I think there's a lot of people that need to be in handcuffs in New York City, including the New York City controller, because there's just frivolous amount of money getting spent, and it's getting lit on fire. It's not even. It's not. It's beyond the point of you're an idiot. I mean, we're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars going. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot is the NYPD headcount. We've been saying that there's no way there's 35,000 officers. I mean, you talk to any rank and file officer, and I'm talking from captain all the way down to a police officer, they're going to tell you there's no way there's 35,000 officers. They're going to tell you you're consistently hearing in the media and from New York City officials that crime is down. You speak to a rank and file officer, they're going to tell you the exact opposite. You know, you speak to a business owner, they're going to tell you the exact opposite. You're going to speak to someone that works or commutes into New York City or lives in New York City every day, they're going to tell you the exact opposite. It's only New York City officials and their appointees that believe any of this stuff. So obviously the budget comes out. Mamdani was supposedly going to fund an extra 500 cops and add the head count of the NYPD to 35.5. This was something that Tish was applauding in the last city council hearing. NYPD Police Commissioner Jessica Tish, she was applauding this in the last budget hearing in front of the Public Safety Committee. And obviously, none of this comes to fruition because it comes out yesterday that that is actually not part of the budget. Now, I don't think it matters if it was part of the budget or not, because again, I don't believe that 35,000 officers, and even I don't believe they'll be able to maintain that level. You know, Mamdani ran on a campaign that he was going to maintain the current headcount of 35,000 officers, and we sat here and said, "There's absolutely no way you're going to be able to maintain it because you're not going to be able to keep up with attrition." NYPD's been focusing on hiring as attrition has been horrendous. So yeah, there's a lot of things here. We're going to get into all of that, including what we're hearing from the boots on the ground. I put out a post yesterday because I just got so crazed with all the messages and the things that I'm told in the background, and I'll give some context on some of it so you can see, but I'm not going to go too deep into anything. But after I put that post out, my phone, my messages, my social media was on fire because I just got like literally probably 100 exit. Because it was just a sentiment that's brewing amongst people who traditionally don't even talk about the job with me. They're like, this is ridiculous, and we'll get into that further. But what are your thoughts originally, Marlon? You heard that. Well, one, what do you think about the budget? What do you think about the budget? You think that New York City is safe? You think we're in good spot? Like, what do you think?
Well, I mean, here's the problem. The problem is that they needed $6 billion from Kathy Hochul this year to, close the budget gaps, and they need more money next year too. So if you guys could just see the bottom, let me see if I could get those comments off screen for a bit. Yes. So if you look at the bottom where it says gaps to be closed on this, can you guys see it in the chat? Let me know if you can see it. So if you look at the bottom, it says gaps to be closed next year. So that's another $6 billion. And then the year after that, there's another $8.2 billion. And then the year after that, it's another $8.5 billion. So the thing is, you needed help from Kathy Hochul this year to close the gap. And so that means next year, not only will they need the $6 billion that they got this year, but you're going to need an extra $6 billion. So you're going to need $12 billion from Kathy next year, and so on and so forth to those other gaps. So this really doesn't solve anything. In fact, it's merely kicking the can down the road because they still have structural problems in the city's revenue, and they have structural problems Well, there are many structural problems because we talk about like everything from the infrastructure, and they have lots of problems. Is the point? And what they did, what yeah, you might have gotten away with it this go around, but you have no plans for next year and the year after that and the year after that. And this is all, keep in mind, before things really hit the fan with real estate. Because as I've said before, they've been doing all they can to prevent you know the the problems in commercial real estate hit the fan. And the federal government itself, along with its associates in big business and big tech, have doing what they can to prop up the stock market, which is what they're doing with this whole AI merry-go-round of investment, right? It's all meant to keep up the stock market. Now, how does that play into here? Well, if Wall Street has a great year, that's revenue that the city benefits from. So if Wall Street has a terrible year, right? Not only will it hurt the city in terms of say, we go back to those securities tied to commercial real estate, but and the fact that if you have a, a bad year in Wall Street, it creates cascading failures, right? But if you have a bad year in Wall Street, the city will lose revenue, even more revenue. So that means those gaps that you see there of $6.4 billion and 8.2 and 8.5 will be even bigger on top of that. So this budget doesn't solve anything, is the point.
Well, there was no trimming of any fat whatsoever. As a matter of fact, he raised the budget by about 10%. It was about 8%. And for those of you that want to see the budget, you can't, because New York City Council and the mayor's office are completely incompetent, and it's still not available for public view, which is, I mean, they can't get anything right. It's amazing, man. It's completely amazing.
Yeah.
Do me a favor. I got it.
Yeah. Raheem, just to quickly answer your question, it doesn't matter who wins. They still have a crazy choice. The problem is that this state depends so much on New York City, right? Population is concentrated in New York City, of New York State. Most of it is 75% of the state's population is downstate in the New York City metro area, right? So I don't think it matters who's there. I think they probably will try and bail out the city. The problem is that the state itself also has budget issues. So, how long the issue is, how long can this go on?
Yeah, for those of you that are listening, Raheem asked if what happens if Kathy doesn't win the election. What if Kathy Hochul doesn't win? Then what is the mayor going to do?
Yeah,
I mean, and so that's what Marlon was was going on. So this comes out yesterday. We'll go into his whole opening speech was another ridiculous. This is at the question and answer part, and they asking about NYPD. Like what is this? So let's hear what he's got to say about that. Like why what's going on with the 500 cops that supposedly we heard that you were getting, right? The socialists were actually funding cops, and he took a lot of heat for that over his base. The socialists were all going wild. The socialists and the anarchists were all going nuts. How could he be funding 500 more cops? So here's what he had to say.
I noticed that the budget doesn't appear to include any increased numbers for NYPD headcount. Can you explain the rationale for that?
Yes. So I've been talking to all agency heads about ways to find savings, and Commissioner Tisch and I were able to identify ways to keep the NYPD headcount at the originally authorized 35,000 while also meeting all of our crime fighting needs and implementing the new programs that were announced earlier this year.
Thank you.
So he says it right there. Like they're not gonna, with his big smile on. So if you look at Julie Menon's face, she's like sitting there like the idiot that she should sit there like, because it's unbelievable, dude. It's like and then Tish okayed it and we're at the allotted head count. The real issue is this, in my opinion, is that like they're not even anywhere close to 35,000 cops. And if they are, the mayor and the police commissioners should resign yesterday, and so should the chief of department and every other uniformed 3-star chief, because you guys have absolutely no idea what you're doing if you're at 35,000 cops. I've heard over and over and over again this month. I've been watching cops get ordered in, 4 hours post tour, 4 hours pre tour. We've had cops getting their RDOs suspended for regular routine parades. I've never ever seen that ever in my 20 years and 23 years now of being with and now observing the NYPD. So I've never seen any of that stuff happen. We have guys that are getting called on vacation asking if they could come in and do a favor because everybody's really short and work their vacation. Never heard of that ever happening in the past. So basically everyone I speak to, I don't care if they're a captain, if they're a lieutenant, if they're a sergeant, or if they're a cop, and they're in a patrol precinct, they're in a housing area, or they're in a transit district, they are running nobody. They have no sectors. They have nobody operating. They're running dangerously low. They're concerned for their own safety, and they feel like idiots because they're in constant backlog and unable to properly respond to 911 calls in a timely manner. And then if they do get there, when they do get there, they can't even actually handle the job properly because they have 70, 80 calls waiting in the background. So, I mean, public safety is failing really bad in New York City, and it's a result of mismanagement. It's a result of blatant lies. And now you have the mayor saying, we don't really need 500 cops. And he might be right. He might be right that you don't actually need the 500 cops because it looks like you need thousands of cops, thousands upon thousands, because I don't know where the cops are that are supposed to be in the NYPD precincts and in transit districts and in patrol service areas, but they're not there. They're everywhere else but where they should be. And on the same token, it's like, oh, well, they're out of details. Well, then explain how you have all of your other enforcement units. You have all of these other long-term investigative units out on the street in uniform as well, too. Where are all the people then? Are they all hiding in one police plaza? Like, what's going on? Because and by the way, FYI, everyone that's in one police plaza, everybody that's in internal affairs, everybody that's in all these other units, they're all going to details too. They're all dealing with the same thing. So, I mean, I personally think the lies are just getting too big at this point. And people say that like we shouldn't talk about all of the stuff that's occurring, but it's honestly disgusting at this point. You're putting sergeants out without drivers. You're putting lieutenants out without drivers. You're using if you look at command structure, what's happening is you're basically whoever's out on patrol that day, whether it's a lieutenant or a sergeant, they're acting as a sector car. They're answering numerous jobs and they're failing. I mean, severe backlog is going to be the state of the NYPD in New York City this summer. Severe backlog means that every patrol precinct, every housing bureau, every transit district, they're going to be holding hundreds, if not dozens of jobs that are just and then we know what happens when you get to that amount of jobs. Let's say you turn out 3 cars in the beginning of a tour. You're a patrol precinct, and the beginning of a 4 to 12, traditionally the busiest is going to be the busiest tour that you're going to have, and you're holding jobs walking into that. You're never catching up. So what do? At a certain period, they just 90 X-ray all the jobs they put unfounded because they can't respond to them. So I mean, it's really. Taxpayers should be furious, dude. Taxpayers should be absolutely furious over all this.
Well, I've said before, the problem with New York City is that it's, that the increases in crime are disproportionately distributed. So the people in the bad areas don't see. I mean, their quality of life is changing, but it's changing. It's the boiling frog, right? It's changing so they don't notice it. And there a lot of neighborhoods. I'll give you an example. I live on the border with Long Island, and it's a good neighborhood. It's single family houses, and people, the stuff that happens in like inner city like Brooklyn, a lot of that doesn't happen over here, so we know. I've made note before about things like the sanitation pickup times, how those have increased, and how it used to be on time at 11:30 at night. When I first moved there, when it was pickup night, they would be here on the dot, right? And now I've noticed there'd be days, sometimes they don't pick it up until the evening the next day, and we're not talking about holidays here. So I'm bringing that up to point out that the quality of life in it's the changes aren't evenly distributed, so that it changes incrementally in these neighborhoods, so they don't notice it, and they don't. There are a lot of people who are not going to get outraged about it or get angry about it until it's too late, you know until things really hit the fan and they notice that their neighborhood is literally changed overnight. And in the neighborhoods where quality of life is like has deteriorated faster, right? I think those neighborhoods, I don't think they're I think those neighborhoods tend to be more low information, and those people do not participate in the voting process or politics to begin with. So, whereas in neighborhoods like mine, people are not low information and they do participate, but they don't notice those changes until it's too late. So I do think that the city is not being honest with us when it comes to the manpower numbers, because we keep hearing from you know we keep hearing that certain precincts in the city are you know very understaffed right now, and that they're putting out one or two they're putting out two or three cars on late tours. So the question is, if NYPD's headcount is at 35K, where, like John said, where are all those cops? I mean, you just split the Bronx into two, and the Bronx is supposed to get an additional 250 cops. Those cops aren't coming now. Okay. So I just think that the whole situation is dishonest right now, but we should all expect more of this as we head into 2027, and I'll explain next go around why I think that.
Yeah. So Councilman Phil Wong put a statement out, and I think it could have just said basically every member of city council that's honest is going to say the similar thing. He said, at a whopping upcoming city budget of $125.8 billion, Mayor Mamdani's administration chose not to expand the NYPD headcount, while the 104th, the 110th, and the 112th remain woefully understaffed. Our residents need more cops, faster response times, and real enforcement. And so, again, I think that, we want to believe what the city officials are telling us. And I think Phil Wong, and I think a lot of members of city council, members of the media, police, people who consider themselves law enforcement experts, policy experts, the Manhattan Institute, we want to believe that we're being told the truth, right? We want to believe that there's actually 35,000 cops and we just need more cops, but there just isn't. We want to believe that this is the safest 5 months on record, that Mayor Mamdani and police officer and Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch are telling us the truth. But the fact is, it's not. So I'm not going to utter that. I'm not going to utter that lie, but I will say that what Wong's saying here is absolutely accurate. The entire spectrum of the NYPD remains woefully understaffed. I'm just going to read you just some of the stuff. I'm not going to go crazy with it. And a busy precinct in Queens, Saturday night, 109 precinct, right? 109, pretty busy precinct. 4 to 12, it had 3 pages of details on the roll calls. So that means the roll call is comprised of all people, whether they're admin, whatever they're doing, whatever specialized units they're in, and they're everywhere but the 109 precinct. When it was all said and done, they had 2 cars. So the 4 to 12 turned out 2 cars. It is impossible to manage an NYPD precinct on 2 cars. I mean, 911 calls are coming in every minute. They have distances to travel. They have a lot of paperwork to do. Every single job requires a lot of paperwork, requires care. I mean, anyone going to be shocked that that precinct was in backlog the entire night, running from job to job? I mean, we talk about, as cops, we often talk about how dangerous it is to be out there with just two cars, right? You're relying on. But what about when you can't even call from help from the other precincts because they're dealing with the same thing? And what does that look like for a resident calling 911? It's honestly disgraceful, dude. It's disgraceful. Look, I'll just go right. Hold on, I'm gonna go into my messages. I'm not gonna read any names or anything, but Dayton manpower for PSA 2. Not gonna say the date, but a lieutenant, a sergeant, and a car. That's one of, if not the busiest housing area in the NYPD. Covers 7.5, 7.3, 7.7. I mean, ridiculous. Ridiculous. Who else we got? Other thing they were complaining about is that they have a lot of young cops, right? They got a lot of young cops that are on probation. Can't use them for anything. They can't transport prisoners. They can't sit on EDPs. They can't sit on prisoners. They can't be used or touched at all. Can't be used for patrol. They have to stay in their assigned areas. The other thing is the Q teams, which I don't even believe the Q teams are going out anymore because they're all out at details. But it's just complaint after complaint after complaint. I'm telling you, I have dozens in here. I'm not going to continuously read through. I'll read some of them as we go. But there is a systemic problem across the NYPD. It is not just the 104th, the 110th, and the 112th that are experiencing this. It is literally every single precinct. And if you listen to the other council people too, especially the honest ones, the ones that are speaking and aren't afraid of it, if you listen to Joanne Ariola, if you listen to Vicky Palladino, if you listen to a lot of people, Frank Morano, they will literally tell you that there are no cops there, and everyone's complaining, including their commandings. The commanding officers at precinct, like, what do you want me to do? I don't have anybody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have you heard anything about them putting who are they putting on these details primarily? Is it the rookies?
No, it's everybody, dude. It's literally everybody. It's rookies to patrol guys to public safety teams to everybody. It's literally that there's only a certain select, very few people that remain untouched on these details, but basically everyone, whether you're in a federal unit, you got 25 years on, you're out there in uniform. Like I'm telling you, there's no part of the spectrum that isn't getting touched here. Like everybody's short staffed, everyone's doing everything else but what they should be doing. They're doing all these details. They're overstaffing all of these details. And it's just wild.
I'm asking because January 07 class, with my class actually, they're coming up for retirement next year. And then you have July 07 and January 08 aren't too far behind those. And those are all class sizes of over 1,000. So if you're getting these guys, close to 20 years and they are able to max out their overtime, they're getting 70 hours of overtime a month or however much it is this summer, with all the events in the city. We're talking the World Cup, the Knicks riots, the parade, the West Indian Day parade is like right around the corner too. So they have all these events going on, right? And they're able to max out their overtime. I would expect there to be a lot of retirements coming up next year. So now the job hasn't even accounted for attrition this year with a new class coming, with no new classes right now. I mean, that means they're already ahead of the game, already behind the game for next year when next year rolls around. So if we're short now, what's gonna happen next year? If you barely have 2 or 3 sectors riding around on a 4x or the 4x tour, what are you gonna do next year when you're getting even more senior guys retiring?
That's crazy. Listen to this one. Bro, we get smoked on the 3rd platoon, 3 calls on a good day, with collars, hospital, etc. by 1900, which is 7 p.m. for those of you not in so we go by military time in the NYPD. Lucky we have 1, meaning they go down to 1 car almost right away. No one's gotten a meal in months, and I mean 6+ months. I was the only car out a week ago answering 40+ jobs with no help. There's no help coming, nothing to look forward to. It's doom and gloom. I mean, it's one after the other, man. You know, it's crazy. Even the dispatchers are sending me messages. It's dude, I'm telling you, it's gonna come to a really ugly head at some point, and I don't know when that is, but there's gonna be a really bad point in New York City where, again, I think that the lies are just getting too big, and no one wants to hone in on this. That the NYPD is severely understaffed, and all of the stupid things that they did, which lowered the overall quality of police officers, really is not helping at all because people aren't seeing the people that are coming in the door, like with a focus on hiring, it's just failing because you're focused on bringing new people in, right? So you're getting new people in, but you're not accounting for all the issues that are inside of the NYPD currently. So the experienced guys, like Marlon's talking about, like Marlon's class coming up, it's going to be a rather large class. You could expect the overwhelming majority of them are drooling at the mouth to get out. And they're gonna retire in mass right around that time period when they're eligible, right? As soon as they're eligible, they're gonna run out the door in mass. But now you have these new guys, and once they become NYPD cops, after their 18 months where they're babied, like, oh no, you can't do this, you can't do that, they can't touch you, they can't do this. They're gonna be thrown into the fray, and they're gonna be going into this unforgiven environment that's like insane, and they're going to be working all the time with no hope in sight, getting no meals, no hope of anything coming, detail after detail, no RDOs, constant pressure, constant holding 40, 50 jobs, constant scrutiny, and mismanagement at the top. And what are they going to do? They're going to say, all right, well, I obviously can't do this for 20 or 25 years. This isn't really a viable profession. So let me try to spin this off to go to the MTA, go to Nassau, go to Suffolk, go to Port Authority, go to a Florida agency, go to Tennessee, go somewhere else in this country where police work is just not as demanding as this. And they actually care about the health and wellness and safety of officers. And I think that's what's happening is like, it's just an extremely high rate of attrition that's never been seen before in the NYPD. And again, it started in 2021. And everything that we said was going to happen in 2021, 2022, where it was that basically the NYPD was going to enter into a death cycle, a death spiral where officers were just going to continuously leave and the NYPD wouldn't be able to hire. And even if they are, you're not going to want the people they're hiring. And that's exactly what's happening right now. They're like, oh, we'll get traffic agents in. It's like, okay, guy doesn't even speak English. Guy doesn't even know anything. Doesn't know any law. Not really a competent individual. Couldn't hold down a sector call. Not a person when you call 911 and you want showing up to your house. You know, there's a competency level that's really been pulled out of the NYPD. We're missing that. And then you see what they're doing. They're rushing people through that have no business. Really bad criminal histories, bad psychologicals, and they're just pushing them through. And what's happening? You're calling 911 and nobody's there. You need a basic report taken. You can't get it taken. You need to deal with the NYPD for something. You need a permit. You need an accident report. Whatever it is, that function of government is gone. It's not there. It doesn't work. It's broken.
Yeah, Tish has talked about that many times. Like I find she dismisses like the concerns when attrition is brought up. She'll always say, "Okay, we're getting 400 more new guys," you know, as though new guys could replace the experience of 20-year veterans. You know, it's like I've said before that the job just doesn't appreciate you. You know, they think you're warming a seat, and when they no longer need you, they'll easily go out and find another body to keep your seat warm. And you've already, if you think I'm just talking on my ass on that, you just got to go back and look at the vaccine mandate, and that tells you just how much they appreciate you. Because if they actually cared that, for instance, I was in Intel and that at the time I had 15 years, if they actually cared about me and cared about the job I did, then you wouldn't have so quickly, been okay to, tell me to go home. But they don't. They don't value that experience. They think, you know, so what? We'll replace you. And because the job is top down centralized, you as long as we have a supervisor there, you can be brain dead moron. You could be brain dead, and the supervisor will fill in the gaps for us. Yeah. So I mean, we're seeing already how that idea is false, and you see it when you looked at the Knicks riots, and everyone's just standing around there, and the sergeant is trying to tell everyone to get into formation while the lieutenants are just walking around like, what am I supposed to do here? You know, so it's not an idea that's helping the job out right now. But something to keep in mind is that it's been talked about before, but unlike prior generations, and I'm hoping you guys aren't hearing the noise behind me. Unlike prior generations, right? Gen Z does a lot of job hopping. Okay, our generations were told you go to school, you finish school, and then you work for an employer until you retire. And clearly that's different now, and Gen Z doesn't look at it. They haven't been groomed in that tradition, and it's been spoken about many times before how they job hop. And this is it's an article about a report from a research firm called Randstad about how they job hop. I'm bringing this up now to let you know that unlike prior generations, quality of life is a big deal for Gen Zers, right? So if you have these Gen Zers, working 7 days a week, working 12 plus hour tours, and not being able to enjoy life or have a good quality of life or good home work life balance, right? They will leave. Okay. And in a time when other municipalities with a better quality of life are offering bonuses to leave, that I expect that to continue. And keep in mind, some of those municipalities that are offering better bonuses are newer cities with new infrastructure, and they are growing now. In particular, as I keep bringing up, the Sun Belt cities like Phoenix, like you know, uh, parts of Texas, Florida. Those Sun Belt cities are growing and they're booming with jobs. And as they continue booming with jobs, they will need more city workers, more municipal workers. So yeah, I would expect there to be more of an exodus of younger cops in addition to the attrition rate of veterans.
Well, I look, I agree that generations are different. And I think generations become more informed and look for a better quality of life. But I don't think that any generation could sustain in the current state of the NYPD. I don't think if you took those guys in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, that they could sustain in this NYPD. This is a highly mismanaged, highly dysfunctional, and highly understaffed agency. It's not like what we've experienced. We've had bad nights where you're down to one car, two car. We've experienced that. We haven't operated in that stance 365 days a year. And unfortunately, for the last 4 years or so, it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. The common thing this year that's been coming up, and especially into the summer, is what dispatch is consistently telling is no units available. No units available. I don't think I ever heard that in my life. Especially during the Knicks riots where you heard people calling for help and they said we have no other units available. NYPD is calling for help, and they're telling the NYPD there's no other units available. And that's become a common occurrence. So for those of you in city council who actually care, who are listening, maybe pull that data. How many times this summer has it came up through dispatch that no units are available? Oh, but I know, don't worry. They'll get an order tomorrow, right after someone listens to this. Don't ever put out no units available again. Say something else. Use a different word. Use a different word. How about this one? Not only are the police understaffed and overworked, the dispatchers and the 911 operators are calling out at a record number. We are ordered for mandated overtime 3 to 4 days a week. Imagine calling 911 and being put on hold. Or imagine dispatchers are so short-staffed that they patch some zones together. When they patch, that would mean, for example, 73, 75, 90, 94 would all be together with one dispatcher instead of the 73/75 in one zone and 990/4 in another. The 7375, it's basically this person saying, I'm praying for everyone for July 4th. It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to do a quick pushback on what you said, John. I think I see. I think the reason why Gen Z values their quality of life more, I actually think they do value it more than prior generations because life has been a little easier for them. Okay. Now, I say that because they grew up with a little smart computer in their pocket. Smart computer with a well-developed internet. We grew up and the internet became a thing, but even in our younger years, the internet was underdeveloped. You couldn't go on the internet and order something from China and get it delivered to your house in 3 days. You couldn't pick up a phone and call, order whatever food you wanted halfway across the city and it'd be there in like, 40 minutes, 30 minutes. The Gen Z has grown up in a kind of like a instant gratification society where things are where we're rather a immediate gratification society where things are more instant than they were for others whereas you had to our generations you saw you had to wait a little bit longer for things to happen. You would have to have patience was already built into to your upbringing. Whereas this generation it's not, and that's a byproduct of the way the world has evolved, right? The problem is that in the real world, once they get into the real world, the adult world of jobs, I don't think you will see that immediate gratification, and that includes like working. You will have to grind those 17 hours for multiple days and weeks and months, even as a rookie, before eventually you get to a certain point in your career where you're more senior and you can decline doing things, or you can you get more leeway, and that generation isn't going to see that. They're going to have to be more patient, and I don't think they have that patience that prior generations did. So I think that is contributing to why they're job hopping more than prior generations. I mean, in the report, it says that for a fact, oh, wait, not that one, this one. For a fact that these guys job hop a lot more than millennials and boomers did, So
That's all fine and dandy, but we're having two different conversations. You're talking about a softer generation who expects more and wants more out of work life. I'm talking about a vacuum that has become the NYPD, and I'm saying that I don't care what generation of Americans. Now, you want to talk about China, you want to talk about a different country overseas, you want to talk about Russia, maybe we could have a different conversation. I'm talking about Americans. I'm talking about Americans being thrown into an incompetent system, a vacuum that sucks you up and eats you out. They put you in a position and tell you you need to answer all these 911 jobs, and you need to answer it in this manner, and you need to complete all this paperwork, and everything needs to be on body camera. And you have a set of rule books that if you follow the rules, before you even walked out of the door, you would get 2 hours of overtime before you ever even got into the patrol car. I'm talking about a vacuum where your supervisors have no idea what's going on. You're in constant backlog of 80 jobs. You can't handle any of them properly. You're under a ton of pressure. And then at the end of the night, after you did handle those jobs and you failed to do so, not because your fault, because you were put into that failed system, every single job that you went to and handled, you're going to be scrutinized 8 ways to Sunday. You're going to be disciplined for. You're going to be called an idiot. You're going to be blamed for domestic assaults. You're going to be blamed for murders. You're going to be blamed for shootings. You're going to be blamed for overdose deaths. And you're going to do that for an extended period with months on end where you're never going to get a meal at work. You're going to work 12 to 14 hours a day, nearly 7 days a week. And with no hope in sight, there is not one generation of American who's going to be able to sustain that for a long term. 2 years, maybe. 5 years, absolutely not. 10 years, absolutely not. Knowing your whole summer's ruined, and then when you get your 5 days vacation, right? You get your 5 days vacation, and you're like, oh man, I could go away. I'm relaxed with my family, and your phone's blowing up from, inspections wants you, IAB wants you, CCRB wants you, Sergeant wants you. Oh, hey, could you come in on your day off? Hey, could you come in on overtime? Hey, could you do me a favor? Hey, could you do this? There is not a generation that's going to be able to sustain that. And that goes for all the other guys that, oh yeah, I loved overtime. This generation's soft. Yeah, maybe, but you're not making it in this environment. You're not making it in this environment where there's no experience there. You're learning from no one. Your supervisors are idiots. One police plaza has no idea what they're doing. You're notified that you got to come in at 3:00. Then you're notified you got to come in. No, scratch it. It's 5:00. No, scratch it. It's 7:30. You got to come in. Oh, you know what? We're going to do 2 hours postal up front. And by the time you get to work, you were notified 8 different times. You don't even remember what you were supposed to do. And then I just don't see the NYPD being able to retain people regardless of the generational factors. This is a fact that what's occurring right now, the systems in place right now as the NYPD sits currently with its manpower, with the way they're deploying, with their leadership, there is no generation of American that's going to be able to last in that vacuum. You are going to be mentally and physically drained within 2 years, and you're not going to be operating correctly. That is not a posture you can maintain for a long time while being hyper vigilant, while being out there trying to watch your ass, trying not to get killed. And then on top of that, when you're outside of work for maybe those 3 hours that you got to enjoy life outside of commuting and going to work, those 3 hours are spent worrying about what's coming down the pipeline on the job, and then worrying about who's going to see you outside as you walk around in the neighborhood that you probably police just miles away, and you're worried about that. So I mean, it's just rife for physical abuse and mental abuse. It's set up for a communist slave regime rather than an American career. And so like I understand what you're saying. I'm not arguing you at all about the generational factors of why Gen Zs move around and why they think more and why they want more. I'm saying that right now, the NYPD is a vacuum of incompetence, mismanagement, and worker abuse. And there is no person that can maintain that other than a union board member or a union president sitting in a fancy office with a pinky ring on and a really cheap, ugly suit with a bad haircut. You're muted.
Sorry, it had to happen. I have like these big trucks driving by. So yeah, in a lot of ways, we've actually gone through this already in the 1970s. In the 1970s during the budget cuts, right? And keep in mind there was a layoff of cops around 5,000, I believe. Were laid off, and they weren't hired again until the early 80s. Okay, and some just didn't come back to the job. Now keep in mind in the 70s, response times sometimes were up to over an hour for jobs. So in a lot of ways, we've kind of gone through this situation before. But
That we
the
have that.
reason, well, it's history doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it often rhymes. Is a phrase that's popular.
In the 1970s, the level of scrutiny on police officers
Yes,
compared to today is
I
not
agree.
even comparable.
I agree.
In
I agree.
1970, you could smack someone
Mhm.
over the head with a nightstick and walk away, and nobody's going to say anything. Like it's totally different. If those jobs weren't answered, there was pre-Comstat. There was no look back on these
I agree.
cases. There was no look back on anything. CCRB had no power. IB was a complete joke. They were systemically corrupt themselves. Not that much has changed on that front, but like it's completely different vacuum than 1970. I'll agree with you with the response times, and I'll agree with you that an inferior product that New York City residents had. But the stressors on the cops were totally different. The cops were still respected by both political parties, and their word was gold.
I agree. I agree. But the listen, I brought up this tangent because I'm just trying to put it in terms of so we understand like why the job should expect a lot of these young guys to leave, you know, even to continue leaving and maybe even leave more so than than the older guys are. And I'm trying to put it into context here that young guys, right? They grew up in a different environment than the older generations, and the older generations had more patience for it, you know. So, and part of that reason is because you know older generations could go deal with the nonsense because you're trying to you're trying to buy a house, for instance, whereas these younger generations, they won't be able to afford a house regardless. So at a certain point, it becomes, why am I working? Why am I putting up with this BS? So, I'm never home. It's not like I can afford it. I can afford my own home, or I can see the rainbow at the end of the storm, you know? So I'm just trying to put it into context there, why I believe that the younger generations will leave more so. And now I 100% agree that conditions are worse. They have a lot more scrutiny than the older generations have. But I'm just pointing out that the job should understand that these young guys are not going to have the patience to put up with the constant BS like the older ones did. And the younger ones will have much more opportunities to leave than the older generations did. So if you think that if you don't value the veterans staying on, and you think you could just replace a guy with 20 years with a rookie, and you're thinking that rookie is going to stay there long term, then you're crazy considering these conditions that I'm mentioning. It's just not going to work.
No, and that's my point. Like that's the whole point that I'm getting at is like you can't retain the guys that work these crazy tours and work these crazy hours. And there's some guys that'll work themselves to death. You're not retaining them because of the vacuum that the NYPD is. And then you're just going to focus on hiring new guys. And it's a completely different generation. Then they go into that same vacuum that's a failed system that everyone wants out of, that everyone has an exit plan to. And you're 100% correct about the generational issue. They go into that vacuum, they're out the door quicker. Maybe they don't even last 2 years. Maybe they last 6 months. Chronicle says he didn't see me at the duty to disobey audience from what Teachers Choice posted. Well, Teachers for Choice decided to have another premiere in Long Island. I went to where the city workers were affected. The one I went to was at the Scandinavia House in New York City. So that's why. So, you know, and not that people, obviously a lot of people from Long Island were affected, but I thought it should have been one premiere in New York, and it should have just been in New York City where the city workers were affected. There were no teachers in Long Island that were affected. There were no cops in Long Island that were affected. There were no firefighters in Long Island that were affected. So I was with Bravest for Choice. I was with Do Not Comply New York City. I was with all of them. I was in New York City at the Scandinavia House. So that's why you didn't see me.
Yeah. So let me see. there's anything in there. Yeah. Yeah, guys. So I posted a link to the article in the chat, and so this is coming from the Daily News about the budget agreement. But yeah, fiscal responsibility, huh? Making transformative investments. You have to wonder when they say things like this, who are they actually talking to? Because I don't see any fiscal responsibility in that.
Fiscal responsibility and
Yeah.
transformative investments.
Yeah.
You think she
Ye-
believes that? Because I don't. Julie, do
Yeah.
you believe that? Because I don't think you believe that.
Yeah. Is it fiscally responsible to, you know, if there's not enough concern for public safety for the businesses that conduct, business in the city, for the small businesses in the city? Um, so also in this article, again, it points out uh, it highlights that Mark Levin, the comptroller, has actually noted how much this budget depends upon gimmicks and fancy accounting tricks, and that again we still have these looming budget gaps that are going to be problems in the coming years. And so my question is, if we don't have any new classes this year, what are we going to do next year? Are we not going to have a new class next year either? Like something's got to give. If you don't want to cut all the nonsense for these for these community groups and these NGOs and this you know social welfare programs, then what's going to happen next year and the year after that? Or where you going to get the money to fund cops? And keep in mind also that the feds have cut $150 million from the money that they used to allocate to NYPD. I believe it's the COPS program, cops. The Homeland Security itself is also tightening their requirements for federal funds for law enforcement in the city, in particular around the sanctuary city policy that New York City has. So again, where is all that money going to come from? And how will we have new classes next year?
I mean, I just can't believe that she made that statement. Fiscally responsible. Let's look at some of the budget. Like this came out of the New York Post. So if you look at this, NYPD has a budget of $6.6 billion, right? They got an increase of $300 million. That is the most scrutinized agency on the face of this earth, but it's the most scrutinized agency in New York City by far. It's the only agency that city council even pays attention to whatsoever. They're the most utilized city agency, obviously. I'm going to play a clip from Eric Adams where, obviously he was the most corrupt and incompetent mayor. He was a disgrace as a New York City mayor. He was a disgrace as an NYPD cop as well. But besides that, broken clocks are right sometimes. And he goes on a tangent about this as well. Has like no one cares about anything else that's occurring in New York City other than the NYPD. NYPD overtime and where NYPD cops park their cars are supposedly the biggest concerns for city council, nothing else. But then you go down to the Department of Education, $38 billion. $38 billion. I mean, 5-6 times higher than the budget of the NYPD. Now, obviously, children's education is huge, right? They have an increase of $2.9 billion. Now, we had reported on a few weeks ago that they spend $13 billion in upgrades on city contracts. They have about 600 contracts currently. 60% of them are no bid contracts. And the head of New York City Schools testified that they can't even produce the 600 contracts. They can't put them in a digital format. All of the contracts, like many of the NYPD contracts and many of these other agencies' contracts, are rife with corruption. There's been indictments. There's been guilty verdicts. there's been there's been so many numerous allegations of misappropriation of contracts coming out of this agency, yet I don't see anything from Tiffany Caban. I don't see anything from Lincoln Ressler. I don't see anything from anybody about the Department of Education. How about the Department of Homeless Services? It's almost as big as the NYPD. $4.2 billion. Could anyone on here tell me where that money goes? I drive around New York City. There's homeless people all over New York City streets. When I was in the NYPD, I dealt with homeless people every day. You know who they never dealt with? The Department of Homeless Services. They didn't trust them. They didn't want to go into their shelters. They didn't feel safe in their shelters. $4.2 billion. Could anybody tell me one area that the Department of Homeless Services is successful in? $4.2 billion. We have a Department of Education where we know that there's $13 billion and more than likely 60% of it's being spent unnecessarily. You have a failed Department of Correction in here. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then you look at stuff like DOT, Department of Transportation, $1.68 billion. You would expect that to be a lot higher. I would expect the $685 million for parks and recreation. I would expect that budget to be a lot higher. I would think that New York City residents deserve nice parks. I would think that New York City residents deserve nice transportation, comfortable roadways, means of egress. I would think those things, but no. What you get is you get funding, billions of dollars being lit on fire to not-for-profits that are not effective, keep no data, there's no tracking, and even just looking from a top-down 300 high-foot view or 3,000 high-foot view, you look down at these agencies and you can't find one area where any of it makes sense or it's reasonable to believe that we should be spending money in it. So fiscally responsible, that budget is anything but fiscally responsible. It's criminal.
Yeah. And keep in mind that we still have things like the Office of Community Safety, and that has 2 people, but it has a budget of $260 million. So I don't see any fiscal responsibility there. Yeah. And again, just going back to what I said earlier, like we depended on Hochul this year, and next year we're going to depend upon her even more. But the problem here is that she herself is. I saw this great video about what I've said before here about upstate development in central New York's upstate, right? I'm not going to play it because we'll get a copyright strike. But I'm going to post a link in the chat so you guys can see it as well. But in this video, they talk about how much she's working towards redeveloping parts of upstate. We're talking outside cities like Rochester and Syracuse and, the Hudson Valley over there. So at a certain point now, if we're going to be dependent upon her to close those gaps, at a certain point, she's going to have to make a choice because those budget gaps are going to keep increasing even more every year. And she already said that New York City has to get its stuff together, in not exactly those words, but she basically said, she alluded to it, right? At a certain point, she's gonna have to make a choice. Either she accomplishes her goals of getting people back in upstate and the Hudson Valley regions of New York, that regions that lost out when the Rust Belt was outsourced in 70s and 80s and 90s, right? Or she's going to have to keep funding New York City's boondoggles, their budget boondoggle. And, whoever replaces Kathy, if they replace Kathy, might face the same choices too. Either you continue developing upstate New York, or you keep funding New York City, but you can't have it both ways. So if New York City considers what they're doing fiscal responsibility, then we're gonna have to get a whole new definition of the word. But either way, they're gonna have to. I think they're gonna have to come to Jesus at some point because Coachel herself is gonna have to make a choice. So, but it's a great video, and again, I think you guys should watch it because it's. I think if there's hope for New York City, it will eventually come from the state saving itself and not just having all this wealth and income concentrated on the New York City metro area, you know, because prior to the this the Rust Belt outsourcing, upstate New York had a lot of vibrant areas with people living there, you know, and we had a lot of factory labor that would produce stuff, and it would eventually get shipped out of the HUD, shipped out of New York City. So, so it's a good video, and again, you guys should watch it.
Look, it's like, to me, again, this isn't hard, dude. Like, there's billions of dollars in there being thrown down the garbage. Billions and billions of dollars in here. We could do a lot with that budget. You could all you New York City workers, you could get massages every day,
Yeah.
and get manicures and all that on taxpayer dime with all that money in there. There's fraud, waste, and corruption, and until that's addressed, nothing's going to get fixed. And yet, oh, by the way, all of your pensions are in there. Your pension money's in that budget, in case you didn't know. I don't think the police pension money's in there, but I think the other municipal labor unions, all their pension money's in there. So, absolute joke. Absolute total joke. All right, it's time for a message from our partners over at Kalshi. The 2026 primaries are taking shape, and you can trade the biggest political races on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primaries, election outcomes, and the biggest political storylines as they happen. Will the Republican Party win the U.S. House in November? Right now, the Republican Party is currently trading at 18%. Meaning a $50 trade would pay out $249 if Republicans win the House. So Republicans are big underdogs here. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code FINEST to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. So,
Yeah, that's an interesting poll, by the way. I wonder if they'll win because people will actually go out to vote, or whether people will stay home, and that's how they win. I couldn't tell you which way it'll be right now. From my end. Right?
Well, I could tell you one thing. I could tell you that everybody I speak to, they're not up on any politicians. They're like, I'm not motivated to go out here at all, and vote for anybody. And most of that is all in New York. It's New York based. Like they don't care. They have no faith in any candidates on either side. They feel like they've been left over the coals, especially, if you guys get a chance to watch Duty Disobey. I mean, it's literally what's been righted. What wrongs have been righted? I don't know, maybe a few people, little sprinkled people out of thousands, I don't think many wrongs have been righted since that time. And so all these people feel left out. They were forced out of their careers. They had their livelihood stripped from them for absolutely no reason. None of it made any sense. And so, yeah, that's what people were talking about. Like, I don't care about any of these Republicans anymore, or the Democrats. Like, nobody's coming to save us. Nobody cares. And that's exactly how an NYPD police officer feels. And if you're a New York City resident, that's how you should feel. But it's apathetic. The candidates all suck. I mean, I don't think there was really a great candidate at all for the last mayor's race. And this idiot wins. And now what is he telling you? He's telling you, I'm the same guy. I'm no different than Eric Adams. I'm no different than Bill de Blasio. This budget is an absolute disgrace, but he's going to paint it an absolutely different way.
It was January. Snow lay on the ground. Our city was reckoning with a $12 billion deficit. a fiscal crisis larger than any since the Great Recession. For too long, New York City had relied on budgeting tricks instead of budgeting honestly. Costs were hidden, fiscal cliffs were ignored, difficult decisions were deferred for someone else to make. We chose a different path. 14 weeks later, after long nights and painstaking work, we presented an executive budget that brought that $12 billion gap down to zero. We balanced the budget without asking working New Yorkers to shoulder the burden once again. We balanced the budget without slashing the services that New Yorkers rely on, the cultural institutions and public transportation that connect people to the city and to one another. And we balanced the budget by governing with a fiscal responsibility that has been absent for far too long from City Hall. We scoured for savings, we found efficiencies and streamlined city government. We refused to repeat the mistakes that created the crisis in the first place. We budgeted honestly. We accounted for the real costs facing our city. And we began building a government that plans for tomorrow instead of pretending that it will never come. We worked closely with Governor Hochul and our partners in both Albany and here at the City Council. And we raised taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers instead of taking more from those with the least. Throughout this process, I've been reminded of the words of the Austrian economist, Friedrich Hayek. If socialists understood economics, they wouldn't be socialists. If these past months have shown us anything, it is that socialists not only understand economics just as well as the capitalists who came before, but that we can solve their years of mismanagement through an embrace of our principles. There is nothing fiscally responsible about balancing the budget on the backs of working people. Today, 6 weeks after presenting our executive budget, I am proud to stand alongside Speaker Menon and the City Council to announce that we have successfully negotiated an agreement on a final adopted budget. We have worked together to usher in a new era of fiscal health for our city, one that is sustainable, one that is durable, and one that makes needed investments in a safer, more affordable New York.
So he wasn't going to balance the budget on the backs of working class New Yorkers, but he took money from the pension funds. He deferred pension payments. Like, what is it you even talking about? Oh yeah, we're getting rid of the years of capitalist mismanagement, and we're going to spend more money than them on even more of the same failed programs. Like, what, dude? He is a very well-trained actor, but he has zero substance behind the things he's saying. He's doing exactly what he accused Eric Adams of doing. Exactly what not even that he accused, he's doing exactly what Eric Adams did. He's funding all of these failed programs, and he's doing it on the backs of working class New Yorkers. So I don't know what this dude's talking about.
Yeah, he's doing the same things he excuse me, he's doing the same things he called out in there, and Mark Levine has already said that they're doing. He said this during the budget hearings at the beginning of June, by the way. I didn't have enough time to get footage of it, but certainly in the coming days, as we dig into the actual budget statement, the statements even more, I will get those videos for you guys, and we'll talk about it. But he says that the city is using budget tricks to close the gaps. He says tricks such as pension reamortization, rolling over prepaid expenses, and relying on short-term state support only masks the underlying imbalances and it shifts fiscal risks into the future years. Essentially, what he's saying is they're using trickery to kick the can down the road. And we've talked a lot about how pension deferring the pension contributions is merely kicking the can down the road to bigger problems. But again, Mamdani doesn't care about that because he won't be in office when that has to be dealt with. And this is Mark Levin's exact statement about the budget. And let me get those words off the screen. So let's see if hope you guys could read it. Let's see. He says that the budget reveals the city's ongoing structural imbalance between recurring spending and recurring revenue, and the enormous extent on which we rely on the strength of the financial sector to support growing spending, even with billions of dollars in an unexpected additional revenue, the city needed state support and 6.1 billion in short-term and one-time measures to close the gap. Same thing we've been saying, guys. You know, even with all their trickery, they still needed help from Hochul. And he says this agreement gets the city through an exceptionally difficult year, but it does not resolve the structural challenges ahead with large out-year gaps, limited reserves, and significant economic uncertainty. Everything we've talked about, right? That significant economic uncertainty is he's alluding to the stock market, and he's alluding to problems with commercial real estate that we've mentioned here. But so the same things Mamdani talked about there, and the same things he kind of talked about the Adams administration in they're underestimating how much how much how big the gaps were, is the same thing he's really doing here too. And he's just a better orator, and he comes across as more likable than Eric Adams did. But he's doing the same exact thing that Eric Adams did, which is essentially kick the can down the road.
Yeah.
So.
I'm like, it's wild, dude. And then this whole thing, like if you speak to anyone that's honest and you speak to them off the record in the New York City Police Department, they're going to tell you exactly what we've been saying here, that they're understaffed, they're mismanaged, they're an incompetent agency, they don't even know what they're doing, they all want to leave, they all want to go somewhere else, they all hate it. But Politico reached out to the department for a quote on Mamdani scrapping his proposal to boost the police department's headcount, and this is what the department said. For now, the department is able to effectively police with the budgeted headcount we have. So I mean, it's wild, dude. This is a video that I want to play. I think this is important because it comes out of Boston. And I think, we consistently talk about how cities are moving in lockstep, especially these larger cities that are under Democrat control. And this is one police officer trying to stop a street takeover with 150 people. Now, I don't know why he was in the middle of it and why he decided to go out and amongst all these people. Probably not a good look. But the union had put out a statement saying that, that basically their headcount's down. Nobody wants the job. All the experienced guys are leaving. And not only is a cop going to get killed, but the residents aren't safe. So this is occurring. This is a trend occurring every single place that Democrats are in charge. So, Zohran Mamdani wants to make a difference between socialists and Democrats, but I'm not going to do that here because they've moved in lockstep with nearly every single thing. Defunding the police, emasculating the police, pushing criminals ahead, pushing money towards billions of dollars towards all these failed programs. They all advocate for open borders, non-citizen voting. They don't want voter integrity. They've removed everything that they could on that in the name of not trying to scare voters. They empowered illegal aliens. They put illegal aliens before their own citizens. And this is just the state of what's happening in diminished cities. But I thought this one really honed in on everything that we were talking about here, even though this is Boston. It just shows it's happening everywhere. And it's the policies and the politics are the reason you're seeing all this. So this is one Boston police officer, and he really almost gets himself killed. Like, I don't even know why. And if you guys are in this situation, you're completely outnumbered. I don't even care if they're two of you. You wait for backup. And however long that takes. So they said, like, on the news, the way they reported it and the way the news reported it and the way the union's saying it, it's that he had to handle the job by himself because there were no other units available.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I don't think that's a coincidence because Boston is in a lot of the same trouble that we are in as a city. This is a progressive city problem, and it's a progressive the
Democrat.
failure of progressives to be able to manage a budget, and this has been built up for decades. To be honest with you, the issue is that for decades, the parts like America and certainly big cities were able to leverage debt easily, and those times are ending, and so everything is kind of hitting the fan right now in terms of their budget situations. I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole of economics, but the point I'm trying to make here is that it's not just New York City facing these problems. It's San Francisco, it's Boston, it's Chicago. It's find me a progressive led city, and I will show you a city that is in fiscal trouble right now. And Boston is just another one of them. And they not only face looming deficits, right? It's I believe it's higher than this now because they have a 53 million deficit just tied to their school system alone, and then they have another $48 billion gap. I think that's actually $50 million gap with the city. So it's not only immediate problems, but they're looming problems related to their real estate and how much their offices have been emptied out and are empty in the downtown area. So it's not just New York City, but it's a lot of progressive cities that the money was good, so they never, it was all good and well to hand out all this money, free money to social welfare programs, NGOs, and to mismanage the city. But now when money's tightening up, it's like like Warren Buffett says, the tide is gone and we see who's swimming naked. So all these areas are in trouble, and all of this is trickling down into their police departments in terms of manpower, and you're seeing it yourself reflected in videos like that.
Yeah, oh, it's wild. And then you would think your unions would be really on the ball with all this stuff. This is the message from the PBA, New York City PBA, the largest municipal police union in the entire world, and a complete embarrassment. PBA Patrick Hendry said, the modest increase in the budget's headcount would have been a start, but the real need is even greater. The massive summer workload is just starting to hit, and police officers are already burning out and leaving by hundreds.
Mhm.
Mayor Mamdani needs to recognize that there's even a bigger staffing crisis looming because our members have already been out of contract for nearly a year. He needs to sit down with us and work on ways to keep the cops we already have. So it's just the same failed response. Oh, it's the contract. The contract's going to save everything. And like me and Eric told you 2 years ago, the contract's not going to stop anybody from leaving. As a matter of fact, it might push some people up from leaving. So, but not to say that cops don't deserve a raise. Of course they do. But that has nothing to do with the crisis at hand. The money, again, cops, NYPD cops, overwhelming majority, like 99.9% of them, leave for less pay and less benefits. So it's not the contract, Pat. Right? You keep combing those 3 hairs on your head, they're not going to grow. It's amazing, dude. Like, it's amazing that they could only go back to this. It's all they got. One trick ponies, always.
Yeah.
One trick ponies. They don't you don't think that the massive amount of work hours that they're being given has a factor? You don't think that the fact that the unions have zero to say about their mistreatment and abuse isn't a factor? You don't think that all of the labor contract violations that are violated consistently every day in the NYPD, and you guys say nothing about, and will do nothing about, and side with the city about, mean nothing, have no effect on this? Mamdani settles the contract now. Does it change morale in the NYPD? Does it keep officers? Does it stop does it retain experienced officers, and does it keep younger officers?
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But the bigger question is, There is no way, not a chance in hell Mamdani is going to do that now, because that's going to look terrible, to his constituents, right? Especially since, the initial budget had cuts for like things like public schools, for libraries and these community centers and all that stuff that Mamdani's constituents love. So, now they've brought it back. They've reallocated money for that. But to say that now I'm going to give you guys a raise, and next year we have another looming $6 billion budget gap. Plus, again, like I said, you're going to need another $6 billion from Kathy, the same money she gave this year. So with all that, with the mayor, with Mamdani facing all that, you think he's going to give you guys a raise? Hell no. Hell no. And as a resident of the city, listen, I was a cop too, and I get it, okay? Because I was one of the 25-100 cops. So actually made more money as a cadet in my first couple months in the academy. I remember that was a huge joke. I was like, man, I took a pay cut to become a cop. I should have stayed a cadet. That was the joke in my academy, right? Because a lot of there was a huge percentage of cadets that left at that point to jump into the academy. So my point is that it's really a joke. It really is a joke. That these guys, all they can go back to is that cops need a raise. To me, what that is them telling you to hold on, to trust the plan. Trust the plan, when really they have no answer for it. And in reality, their answer should have been to do all the things that we've been preaching for them to call out the malfeasance in the city and call out the wasteful spending themselves. Because if you want to get a raise, right, we're gonna need to get that money somewhere, right? So if the unions themselves all along had been calling out things like the wasteful spending in the NYPD, like the Cash for Ass program, things like that, then they would have a leg to stand on. But you don't call out any of that stuff. You don't call out any of the waste and fraud in the city at large. But now you're telling us cops need a raise. Well, where the hell are they gonna get the money from? Where are we gonna get the money from? Even if Mamdani wanted to do that, where is he gonna get that money from?
Oh man, I was with a bunch of firemen last night, and they were talking about like how the unions were like, let's not make too much noise. Let's not make too much noise about them wanting to rate our pensions, and then we'll probably get something good. And they were like, it's the same thing that they did with the mandate. And I was like, I think it's even worse than that, dude. I think it's way worse than that. I think it's a lot more nefarious than that. This is Tiffany Caban's statement yesterday. I'm proud to have worked closely with the mayor and public safety advocates to ensure there was no increase to the NYPD's headcount in this budget. Meanwhile, she wants access to the police like this, and she complains about response times. And when somebody threatened her, what'd she do? Called 911 right away and was mad that they weren't there in seconds. Every dollar we spend on policing and incarcerations means money we can't spend on housing, mental health, substance use treatment, and economic stability. The proven policies that actually keep our communities healthy and safe, none of them are proven. None of them. Literally none of them, Tiffany. This budget is an important check on failed policy of broken windows policing and will allow us to build a public safety infrastructure rooted in care, not punishment and incarceration. We have to keep building on it. So she's celebrating this as a victory. She's saying we don't need to do this because we've proven all of this. And, and again, I blame every single police executive. I blame every single police commissioner that has pushed this lie that crime is down. It's disgusting. No more so than Jessica Tisch and New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. The NYPD announced Fewest murders, shooting incidents, and shooting victims in recorded history for the first 5 months of the year. So New York is the safest it's ever been, according to the NYPD and the New York City Mayor's office. So the socialists have made it safer with less cops, with a diminished and demoralized NYPD. And guess what's going to happen while you continuously don't take reports, misrepresent ports, underreport crime? Guess what's going to happen? The job is going to become even more diminished because, like what we continuously hear, we know abolishing isn't going to happen overnight, but we're going to get towards that goal, right? We're working towards that goal. And who's doing it? It's the police executives who are pushing all this bullshit. I personally think, and I seen a bunch of you last night, actually, too. I saw the shock in your face when you saw me at a steakhouse. But like, I personally think anybody that's misrepresenting crime stats intentionally, not reporting proper crime stats, they should be in jail. It's non-integrity. It's, in my opinion, it is a form of large corruption inside of the New York City Police Department. And right as it sits right now, as it comes to crime reporting, the NYPD is systemically corrupt all throughout the department. Systemically corrupt department just on the crime reporting aspect of it. Never mind all of the other garbage that's coming out of it. There's still left over from the Adams administration. Nothing's going to get fixed when you're backing up all the lies. Nothing's ever going to get fixed. No, we're good. We're fully staffed. We're good. Crime's down. We're making history. Everything's fine.
Yeah. Again, these guys aren't. They're thinking about their jobs in the security industrial complex. And in the progressive progressive industrial complex after retirement. They're not concerned with the long-term health of the city or the department. We've talked about that many times, but you're seeing it here, so.
Yeah. Anything else on this before we jump off this? We're starting to run to an end. We're at hour 30. We're going to end at the 2-hour mark.
No. Like I said, before we go, keep in mind that we didn't talk about this yet, but I think this plays another part into it. Mamdani is he again reopened the push to close Rikers Island. So think of it: you have less cops, and now you'll have more perps on the street. So that spells that's kind of a dangerous cocktail to me. But this is what's ahead. So.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing is they don't need cops because they don't want you locking anyone up because they don't want anybody in jail. I mean, she said it.
Yeah.
This is the goal. This is what they're all telling you. And people are like, no, we should. The unions are like, yeah, but if we don't make too much noise, they'll give us something good. You stupid fucks. Like, you really think that? You dumb fucks. Like, you are so fucking stupid. They'll give us something good. They want to get rid of all of you.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's amazing. How about the 5th firefighter deal? So there was supposed to be a 5th firefighter on the truck, right? And guess what the unions did by playing nice? You didn't get the fucking 5th firefighter, you dumb fucks. You gave them access to your pension fund and you didn't even get anything for it, you stupid bastards. Not that you should have got anything for it. Not that you should have ever gave anyone access to the pension fund, because like we've showed you over and over and over again, every fund that's ever done this has paid it for it in the long run. So you were willing to give shit up, but instead you were willing to give shit up just so they didn't think they might like us better if we don't say anything. Dumb bastards, bro. Honestly, so fucking stupid, man. It's amazing, bro. It's amazing how stupid. I can't even believe how dumb these fucking people are. I really can't. So they didn't even get the 5th firefighter. They stayed quiet, thinking we're gonna get something good. Yeah, you know what you're gonna get good? You're not gonna have a fucking pension, you moron. That's what you're gonna get good. When your house goes on fire, you call 911. Nobody's gonna come. You stupid fuck.
Yeah.
It's like it is amazing, dude. It's amazing how stupid the union president is. But don't worry, the SBA board won unanimously.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up.
They all got
I was about to
reelected
bring that up.
unanimously. Because you know who's fucking dumber than them? You. That's who's dumber than them. All you fucking idiots in the union. That's who's dumber than them. You stupid fucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, geez, you're your own worst enemies. You know, your own worst enemies. This is
Everybody's
why.
scared to run against the board. Nobody will do anything. It's fucking pathetic, bro. And honestly, it's rife with fucking cowards, bro. Honestly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, this is why the unions do what they do, because they think you're dumb, you know?
Because you are. And you prove it.
Yeah. Yeah, you say nothing, you're apathetic, you know, you fall for the same tricks over and over again. So why are they gonna stop now? What you incentivize them to continue doing what they do. So, you know, don't complain later on when they pilfer your pension and they tell you you're gonna have to take a, you know, you're gonna have to take a 30% cut. So I post the article in the link in the chat for you guys to check it out. But yeah, it's true. The entire board unanimously were reelected. I don't get it, man. I really don't.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I was like, you know what? I take back everything. You guys deserve it all. Like, honestly, sergeants deserve fucking nothing. Like, you don't deserve a raise. Just for that, you don't deserve anything. Honestly, you know, you like your diminished lifestyle. You like being overworked. You like being held to impossible standards. You like being blamed for absolutely everything and being set up for failure.
Yeah,
it's a joke. Yeah, but let's frame the New York Post with this cop that's probably going back to jail. Like that's fucking good. That's such a terrible look with all big smiles on our face. We're hanging out with Dolan and Dolan's sweet. Here we frame the cop that went to jail so that we could sit up here in our fucking suits, in all horrendous suits, may I add. It's amazing, dude. It's amazing.
Yeah. Think of it, how much we've now degraded the rank of sergeant. When sergeants are now having to respond to jobs as though they're still on patrol. You know, you guys are chasing the radio. Didn't you take the test so you no longer have to chase the radio like you once did on patrol? And now you have to chase the radio, you know? And you're going to become a lieutenant soon, and you're still going to be chasing the radio, and you're still going to be having to go hands-on on all sorts of protests and riots in the city. So you have nobody else but yourselves to thank for that. When next time you're at a protest and you have to go hands-on, and you, sergeant, have to pull out your cuffs and put the cuffs on yourself, you need to thank yourselves for that, because you have no one else to blame but yourselves. Okay?
NYPD sergeant, you're on patrol, you're in transit, you're in housing. It is the worst job in America.
Yeah.
It is the hardest, most impossible job in America. You have impossible expectations of you.
Yep.
Absolutely impossible. You're completely set up for failure. It was always that way. And it's gotten significantly harder in the last 10 years. And you know who's been in charge of your union since that time? These fucking idiots. And you reelected all of them. None of you's got anything good. None of you see any issue with being sergeant. None of you see anything that you could fight back at. I mean, like, look at the lawsuit that was settled over the time under Mullins, like where we had to come in early to make the roll calls, and we never got paid for any of that. Right? We never got paid for any of that. I had to come in, like, I would literally come into work like a half hour, 45 minutes early, prepare the roll call for the day, figure out what I'm going to get with my diminished staff and all this other shit and all that other nonsense that I had to do. And I couldn't get paid for it, and I couldn't put in for time for it. And so they settled that lawsuit, and we got back pay for all that stuff, right? And then guess what happened? I was still coming in 45 minutes early, generating the roll call, couldn't take overtime for it. So nothing's changed. Like, you know what I mean? And there's so many different issues like that. Sergeants don't have drivers. Sergeants don't have the proper staff to do an actual proper job in the precinct. And I mean, just all of it. Anything you could think of, every aspect of what a sergeant does now is gone. Their labor contracts are violated daily. Nothing said about it. This poor bastard going to go to jail, and all they did is get a national fundraising platform to fundraise for him for his appeal, and didn't use union money to fundraise his appeal, and didn't use all of that media attention to fundraise for his wife and kids. They used it for his legal appeal when it should have came right out of the SBA budget. Ridiculous. Unanimous. That was the most ridiculous thing ever. So just think about that. Any of you guys that get arrested, SBA is not going to fund your appeal. Maybe they'll get this national fundraising platform to help fundraise for your appeal. Maybe. But you, your wife, your kids, while you're sitting in jail, don't worry about it. You're going to be left with nothing. But Dolan will have a nice fucking plaque with your New York Post on the front cover on it, will he? Funded by you, by the way. You have no volume on, bro.
Oh, sorry. John Clark, right? John Clark says, come on, you're a sergeant, not royalty. You can get your hands dirty. Don't be a prima donna. That's not what we're saying here, okay? What we're saying here is the sergeant, you're a supervisor, right? You should be supervising. You shouldn't be, how can you supervise and yet you're chasing the radio too? You can't do both properly, okay? You need a sergeant. I'm not saying the sergeant can't answer a job every now and then, but I'm simply saying, as a cop, especially, right? I was never a boss. Part of the reason why I had no interest in becoming a boss for majority of my career, like I said, just before they kicked me out, I said to myself, you know what? If I manage to survive this, I will become a boss, just because there needs to be pushback at the top, okay? And they need people with actual balls, going up the chains, right? One of the reasons why I had no interest early on in my career in being a boss is because I see the crap that you guys have to deal with. Not only do you have to deal with that rookie that has half a brain, right, that you got to supervise, but you also got to deal with the crap that gets sent downstream from the top, from up above. So you got the worst of both worlds here. As a cop, I have ways that I can get around the BS, and I know that if I'm very active, pretty much for the most part, I get left alone by the bosses in the precinct, which I can tell you for a fact that as an active cop, people say they figure I'm competent and they left me alone to do my thing. But you as a boss, remember, you're not only dealing with the competent cops that you have to supervise, but you have to supervise that guy with half a brain too, right? So what I'm saying is that the sergeant should answer a job every now and then, but he needs to supervise, and you can't do both properly. If you're chasing the radio and if the job is short of manpower, you're not gonna be able to supervise properly and be able to monitor what your guys are doing. And if you can't monitor what your guys doing, that's kind of a detriment to those guys who are, who have the freedom to be an active cop and need you to step in sometimes and save them from themselves. You're not going to be able to do that if you're chasing the radio and busy answering jobs as though you're a cop again. Okay. And the problem for you now is that when shit goes sideways, it's when that cop goes over the deep end and gets himself in trouble, or when that half brain rookie does something stupid, that's on you. So these are things that you need to keep in mind. And obviously, the SBA, you guys in the SBA are not keeping that in mind, because you tell me there's no delegate who could have ran. Again, you're your own worst enemies.
You want to piss Vinny off, Mo. Don't run against the family. You know what I mean? Because then, look, the NYPD unions are operated like a mafia. That's the one thing. And then they have all these rules and bylaws that nobody sees. Even the delegates don't know what the bylaws are. That's the other thing. Like FDNY is significantly different because You don't ever have to be in the union. You could run for president and you could win. And that's how it should be. It's exactly how it should be. Like, you never have to be in the union. You run, you become the president, you take it over. NYPD, it's literally run like a mafia organization. It's election interference every step of the way. All the rules they have in place, it's all bullshit. All that. If any of that was litigated, it would all get torn down. And what are they doing? They're protecting a grift. They're protecting $80 million, $90 million, $100 million. They're protecting all this money. It's a RICO charge if you look at it's a criminal RICO charge if you look at how NYPD unions run elections. These people are implanted. They're installed, and then you don't have anyone pushing back to try to stop that from happening. And this is why all of this is occurring. It all stems from politics, dude. It all stems from politics, weak leadership. Your politicians that you are voting for, that's what you're getting. You're getting shit, dude. You're getting absolutely nothing. It's just, dude, it's infuriating to watch. But you know what? If they say nothing and they play nice, maybe they'll give us something good. Maybe they'll give us something good if we just stay quiet. Let's hear. This is Zohran Mamdani.
Are prisons obsolete?
Whew, coming through with the quotes, coming through with the titles of the books. I have to read that, actually. I haven't read that as yet. But I think that, frankly, I mean, what purpose do they serve? Right? I think we have to ask ourselves that, which is that, I think a lot of people who defend the carceral state, they defend the idea of it and the way it makes them feel.
So, yeah, if you just don't make them mad, it'll go good. Like, if he doesn't want prisons, why do we need the police? What purpose do you serve? You're part of the carceral state. But if Vinny just plays nice, yeah, Mo, we elected him because you know why? I don't really know why, Mo, but they did like good stuff. Like, nah, I don't. Sick, bro. So we were gonna talk about the thing in Dyker Heights, stabbing, gang assault, 2 warring rival Mexican gangs in Dyker Park. One stabs another, kid dead now. And I was shocked because, Dyker Heights, whether you want to admit it or not, is one of the most expensive, affluent neighborhoods in New York City. I mean, there's prominent people that live in Dyker Heights. There's houses that are valued close to $10 million sitting right in Dyker Heights, right on 13th Avenue. And right across the street, their neighborhood park, Dyker Park, you have people being murdered in warring rival Mexican gangs. You know why that happened? Politics. New York, a state in a city that supports open borders, a state in a city that supports illegals, puts illegal first, a state and city that allows their police department to become diminished, a state and city that has flouted all of the rules, ripe with corruption. It all happens because of politics. And now this is the squalor that you live in, and even Dyker Heights. People in Brooklyn used to aspire to make money and buy a house in Dyker Heights, right? During Christmas time, I always take my family. We walk through all the big houses, look at all the Christmas lights that they do. It's nice. Little kids dream, oh, one day I'm going to get out of the squalor I live in, the apartment I live in, and I'm going to be able to buy a big house like that. And now, I don't know if they're going to really look at it like that. I don't really think they're going to want to live in that house because that house is right across the street where warring gangs hang out and murder each other.
Yeah. And yeah, I wonder how long that's been going on, because if you recall, a couple months ago there was video footage of a knife fight not too far from there, along the Belt Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I put the link to the article in the chat for you guys to read as well. But yeah, this is these are issues that are coming to these neighborhoods, because like I kind of speculated before. I think the neighborhoods that have been traditionally lower crime are losing cops to places like the Bronx to keep like the places like the high crime areas of the city from spiraling completely out of control. So we should all expect you know issues like this to keep coming up in the better parts of the city. And if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, there was another homicide in just off Whitestone, right? By one of the parks in I think it's either Bayside, but it's off of the Cross Island on its way towards like the Whitestone or the Throgs Neck in Queens. So and that's another traditionally great area, you know. So we should expect these incidents to keep happening because these precincts are losing manpower to keep parts of like Brooklyn or the South Bronx from spiraling even more out of control.
Wow, dude. And just real quick before we move on and we start to wrap up, like just about sergeants answering jobs. Sergeants should not be answering jobs at all. Not their it's not within their purview. When you're a sector, you handle your job. Maybe you get 8 jobs a night, maybe you get 16 jobs a night. When you're a sergeant, they handle your 8 to 16 jobs, and every other sector's 8 to 16 job, and they're responsible for absolutely all of it. So there's no reason they need to be doing the same work that you're doing, because they have to ensure that not only are you answering your jobs and being done properly, that every single other person is too. And the way the NYPD sits now, they literally have to get called to every job as it is. So they have their own total set of work that they have to do. So absolutely not. Sergeants do a lot of work that they should not be doing, and they do it to try to help an organization that doesn't help them. But I just want to say that, like, that it is literally the hardest job. And until you're a sergeant, and until you're actually a sergeant that not like, you go sit in personnel and you never did patrol, or I never did the desk, I never did this, I never did that. You're one of those sergeants, then you were never really a sergeant either. Until you were a real sergeant on patrol, handling all of this stuff, don't ever say that a sergeant should handle a job, because you have no idea what you're talking about. It's ridiculous. You're going to be literally every CCRB you get, sergeant's getting. Every IAB complaint you get, sergeant getting. Every lawsuit you get, sergeant's getting. It's whether he was there or not, or he or she were there or not. So a lot of responsibility on a sergeant. They're asked to do way too much. Like I said, it is the worst job in America, hands down. It is the worst, most impossible job, hands down. If you make it out, you wouldn't be able to do 20 years or 10 years as a sergeant on patrol without luck on your side, because you'd be fired. You'd be fired, or they'd sideline you for something else. It's impossible to do. It's an impossible job. And
Yeah.
then, and the one thing that we didn't bring out, that someone just mentioned, and I just want to say, 311 jobs. They're not answering the fucking 911 calls, yet there's all this bullshit about the 311 jobs. You can't even keep up with the 911 calls, and yet you're going to put this emphasis on 311 jobs. And are they important? Yeah, sure, they're important, but they can't even get to the emergencies. How are they getting to the non-emergencies?
Yeah. Now, I'm going to say I get it if the sergeant picks up a job every now and then to give his guys a break, right? But I think that's completely different from answering the radio and the job, um, and you having to answer the radio, because you're shorter sectors. That's completely different. So,
yeah, it's too much. You need to know where all your units are at all times, what jobs they're on. Did they come off? Are they 84? And you're doing all this in your head. And why am I doing it? Because I'm a nitpicker? No, I'm worried about your safety, and I'm worried about the safety of every resident in that area at that time, right? Like, oh, that dude was on they went on that job 15 minutes ago. Where are they? Oh, Sector Addy. What's your location? I might not even come there. I just want to hear that you're all right and you're paying attention and you know what's going on. Where are you? Like, I need to know every job that you're on every single time. Now, when I go handle a job, my brain's taken out of all of that. and the supervision and all that. And I'm monitoring the radio to make sure that the jobs are being handled out properly and everybody's doing what they need to do properly. It's a very hard job. And if you're a conscientious person and you're a competent person, it'll drive you up the absolute wall to do. It's a hard job.
Yep.
All right. Let's get anything else before we hit up the super chats?
No. I agree with you though. Sergeant is a very hard. You gotta shout out to those sergeants out there who are really good at their job. You know, I remember when I first got the conditions, me and my partner turned off our radio to go do a vertical, and we forgot to turn it back on. And the boss, our new boss at the time, Greg Jones. So shout out to Greg Jones if he's out there. Him and Lamont. But he yelled at us, you know, because he was like, turn back on your radios. Don't forget to turn back on the radios. And, you know, and at the time I was like, we were new in the unit and we are like, what's his problem? But, you know, you get older and you realize, excuse me, just how much a sergeant is responsible for and how much he's concerned for your safety as well as, you know, he has to worry about his safety as well. And so it's a lot to do, and it's a lot that he has to manage at the same time. So again, it's a very we don't give sergeants enough credit for the job they do out there.
I totally agree. You know, McLovin says the job was always understaffed on patrol. Command's are top heavy. I'll tell you, patrol was always understaffed, not to what it's at now. I've never seen it like this. I've never seen it where there's one sector out. Starting nights with 1 or 2 cars. I've started plenty of nights with 3 cars and really only had 2. But I was able to grab people and move people, and my neighboring precincts had people, and God forbid I needed something.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen the state it's in. So but is patrol traditionally understaffed? Yes. And should it be? Absolutely not. He says commands are top heavy with specialty personnel. Cops today have no sense of ownership. We would never let a sergeant handle a job. What are you going to do when you're the only sector out? What are you going to do when you're the only sector out and now you got a call? How are you not letting this sergeant handle a job? You don't even know what he's doing because you don't know what you're doing because you're all running around like chickens without a head. So appreciate everybody today for joining us. You know, we'll be back at you on Friday. We had about 500 people with us this morning. 515 people. Just do us a favor if you're new to the channel. Do us a favor, like, share, subscribe. If you're not new to the channel, like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. For those of you on audio, make sure you go give us a 5-star review. Leave a review for us. Helps move us up in the algorithm. Keep us growing. Help us to help you. And, we appreciate everybody that weighs in on the chat. Sorry, it's way too many people in the YouTube chat to answer. For those of you that are on Instagram, for those of you that are on X, for those of you that are on Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever else you're listening or watching this, I recommend you come over to the YouTube at the Finest Unfiltered. The chat's usually lively. We usually have over 200 people in there commenting and talking. So I think it's a great source of information for everybody. And got anything before we get to the super chats? Well, this is like 4 for you already, bro.
Yeah, sorry. It's a busy morning with cars, so I got to turn it off because I'm worried about the noise that's going to come through. I had a complaint once on one of the comments to the videos. They're like, Marlon, you got to soundproof your room. I'm like, all right.
We don't hear it, though. I'm telling you, the show's pretty good. It doesn't really pick up anything.
Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, I came across this on social media, so I thought it was interesting. By the way, the city's budget is also bigger than Florida's. The state of Florida, which is at 117 billion for the entire state of Florida. So, how's that for fiscal responsibility right there, huh? Bigger than the Greece and Philippines and, crazy.
No, number 41 in the world, and it acts as it's starting to resemble a third world nation.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. Let's move on to the super chats.
Yeah. We got so Ron and Rob will be on tonight. Check them out, 5:05 p.m. Myself and Mullen will be back on Friday. Probably do a quick one on Friday. Get ready for the 4th of July weekend. So I hope everybody leads up, has a safe weekend, has a safe week ahead. Let's get ready to the super chats, and then we're gonna hit the road, fellas and ladies. Upstate Detective 999 says, "Good morning, brothers. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you always being here." We got, who do we got? You highlighted IMP Franco. So, John, you think those other heads who said nothing about Zohan rating the pension will say they're not with him touching pensions? I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I think that the unions will go along with anything he says. As long if he reaches out and picks up the phone, he calls them. They'll be like, yeah, yeah, okay. So I think, I think at some point they're going to touch your pensions, and like Marlon said, like Marlon had originally said, we're facing another budget deficit of $1 billion next year. So the other municipal labor unions already opened that doorway. They're going to come back for deferral of even more payments in the following years. They're going to be looking for even more money in the following years, and they'll be looking for more cuts from city workers and pensioners, whether it's healthcare, whether it's your funds. That is going to happen. And that $1 billion, the $8 billion deficit that they're projecting for next year, that's if the stock market does well. It could be much higher than that. So, I have no faith in any of these unions, and all the entirety of the SBA, every sergeant, you're all fucking morons. I can't believe that board got elected unanimously. I cannot believe it.
Yeah.
Nolan, he said, so besides New York City budget, any more details about MOS taking pension loans for non-civil service promotions? I know this goes on for 3 quarters, 12K required, but did not know about promotions. Look, we got nothing else. Those are the rumors. We'll see what happens. We'll wait for the indictments to come down. Or if any indictments do come down. We haven't heard anything about a lot of things that there should have been indictments for and there should have been prosecution for already at this point. So let's see what happens. As we get it, we'll bring it to you. We got Staten Guy 321. He says, Mo, just pretend like everyone's a great person no matter what. Cops should only be in jail because they stop criminals that don't exist. Crimes are illusions. Walk it off, Mo. That's the New York City public safety plan. That is the Democratic agenda. You know, I am so guilty of calling people socialists, progressives, far left. I'm never doing it again. I'm just calling them what they are, Democrats. I put out a post yesterday and I said every Democrat might not be an anti-public safety socialist, but every anti-public safety socialist is a Democrat. And that's a fact. So I don't want to hear anything. The failures that are existing in all of these major blue cities throughout America are the fault of the Democratic Party. That is it. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And you guys know I'm not I'm not saying, oh yeah, vote Republican because they're so great. No, because I'll smack the Republicans around too, because they're cowardly and they're just as corrupt. And they're just as dumb too. And I see a lot of things. And when we talk about New York City, what do? They play patty cake with the corruption, and they play patty cake with all the lies, and they do all this shit to try to be part of the grift or to keep their seats or not have people run against them. So it's not like I'm this big Republican apologist either. Like, oh, always vote Republican. No, but the Democrat Party has failed us, and they continue to fail us. Anthony says, keep keeping us informed. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you always being here. Mayor Jack Greco says, Traffic Bureau taking over NYPD. Send help, PBA. Well, look, you could thank the PBA for that, and you could thank the other unions for that, and you could thank Pat Gordon for that. He just opened the doorway for them to come in late and all their time to count up front. You know, and why did he do that? Because it benefits him directly, not because it benefits his department. Not because, and I don't even want to just blame Pat Gordon. That was also an Eric Adams thing where he was like, we don't need these guys when he was talking about me and Marlon. I'm not worried about them. I have a great talent pool of resources and traffic agents that could become cops. Well, you got them now. Go ask them a question. Go call 911. Tell me if you're getting a lot of help. And I'm not saying every traffic agent is bad. I'm not saying that at all. But don't sit there and tell me that every traffic agent could turn around and be an NYPD cop. Don't tell me that. There is a total different skill set between being a police officer and being a traffic agent. Staten Guy says to you, Marlon, you like conspiracy theories? I think he's trying to make cops quit and not fill them in Dark Knight Rises, and Theater Kid Mayor is being.
Yeah. Well, if you could find me a detective who doesn't like conspiracy theories, he's probably a terrible detective. Okay.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's not. They've put out enough out there to let you know that they want to get rid of the experienced guys, okay? Because you're more expensive. They want rookies. They want cheap rookies who've already, you've already sold out your own healthcare. At least the retirees are fighting back and are still in court. You signed it away, you rookies, okay? So they want us older guys gone so they can pay you guys $2 an hour, pay you cheaper. They know, while a lot of you are leaving early, they know they're at least gonna save in the short term, which is what they care about. They don't care about the long term. When the problems really do hit the fan, they won't be in office. And that's what they're counting on. So it's not a conspiracy that they want to get you off the job. That they want to get guys off the job. It's a fact. They want to get rid of the experienced guys. They want rookies who are going to do what they're going to do as told. They're going to be cheaper while doing it.
It's all planned. They want the cops to quit and not backfill. Dark Knight Rises, and the rich boy theater kid never had a job is Bane. As first,
Yeah,
that's
the same comment.
Same comment. Okay, but yeah, I agree. I agree with you, bro. I think, like I said, they've put a heavy focus on just hiring because they're going to treat the NYPD as slave labor. But I do agree also, and if you listen to whatever her name was, Chevalier, she says it. We know that we're not going to get rid of the police overnight, but we're going to continue to work towards that goal. And that's basically what's happening. They think that the Department of Community Safety and violence interrupters are going to replace the New York City Police Department. And so I don't even think that's a conspiracy theory. I think you just need to look at what they're doing and watch what they've said and now how they dress it up and say it. They're trying to paint themselves as the public safety team now. Democrats are trying to make themselves be the party of public safety, and they clearly aren't. Clearly aren't. I think both parties are off on this, but the Republicans more aligned with common sense when it comes to public safety. They turn into a little bit of bootlickers here and there, but not everything they say is like. They're more aligned. They support law enforcement. They support the law in this country. The Democrats have lost the plot, man. They're gone. They're off the reservation. So I don't even think that's a conspiracy theory. Patrol is going to be all cops with mental stress, hurt, and sergeants doing Sector Adam. I mean, I think that's been the case forever, but I just think it's significantly worse now.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anybody else before we get out of here? Last chance. Don't. Somebody sent us do you remember who that was?
Oh, yes, you're right. Thanks for reminding me. We had a super chat last episode.
Yeah,
I
we
actually
at the end.
took a let me see if I could quickly bring it up, guys. Sorry about that. Yes, we had a super chat at the last minute that we didn't shout out, and we wanted to get them. So it's Powder Mill. He gave $9.99 to the show on Monday. So thanks again, Powder Mill. Your super chat came in at the last just before we close out. So we're sorry we didn't get a chance to thank you for it, but we appreciate it. Just like we appreciate all the super chats we got today, and we appreciate you guys spending your morning with us. And it's Wednesday, so we still got a couple more days to the weekend, and so keep your guard up and stay in the game. John mentioned it earlier, but the executive perspective tonight at 5:05 p.m. is going to have Deputy Inspector Ernest Morales, who is also first Dep at Mount Vernon and Chief of Minneapolis Metro Transit Police. So he's going to be on. He's going to be the guest on tonight. So be back here at 5:05, and stay safe until then.
Make sure Ron doesn't play the promotion ceremony. All right, I'm gonna put on you guys on the chat. Tell Ron don't play the promotion ceremony.
Wait, we got a hit for that?
We got a hit for last night for us and for Ron last week.
Wait, from playing the heroes?
Yeah.
I wonder if is it the background music in it?
Yeah, you can't have the background music.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I would think that was owned by the city, but I guess they must have licensed it from somewhere, right?
No,
Yeah.
yeah, we need a
Yeah, they
license.
probably. I think actually you're right. I think it's from like a Michael Bay movie or like a
Yeah.
like yeah.
Yeah, no, he said, "I followed your lead." Yeah, no, I know. I started the trend. It was
Yeah.
first they did it to us, then you did
Yeah.
it. I scrubbed it on you guys, and then I got notified on the board at about 10:04 last night. I was like, "God damn."
Yeah.
So, but it was a good ceremony. It was a good video. It was worth playing.
Yeah, I'm glad they got rid of the Oprah one. Thank God. Whoever made that decision, good job. Give that guy a promotion who did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stupid Oprah
Yeah.
video. You should never change that. Never change the voiceover by James Earl Jones. Never change that. You can change the video. Do not get rid of it, please.
Heroes. Always heroes.
Yeah.
So,
It's
it's funny, last night at the duty to disobey, one of the guys said, he goes, "Yeah, no, I joined the army because like I saw the commercials with them sliding out of the helicopter and I wanted to do that." I was like, how many people say that about like the James Earl Jones video, like when the ESU guy comes out the helicopter?
Yeah. That video is like you can be in the worst mood, but you see that video and you're like, yeah, man, I'm ready to go out and kick some doors in,
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a good video,
Oh,
It's a
yeah,
good video.
yeah, great, yeah. No, I like the improvements in it too. I thought it was good. Thought
Yeah.
it was really good.
In fact, if you're listening from 1PP, here's a suggestion. Put together a recruitment video using that video, right? And put it out on social media. Put it and pin it to the top of the NYPD page, right? Put that video out there. Okay. That's a great video. And it's again a great voiceover. So
Yeah, hysterical. Jack Greco says you'll never get to those units. I had this. I think I said this before, but I used to work with a salty guy, and he always used to say that to me. He used to be like, "I thought I was going to be the guy sliding down the rope, and here I am." And he was like doing midnight patrol, and I used to crack up every time he said it.
yeah, that's. I'm gonna comment on that on Friday. We don't have enough time here, but I gotta push back against that. Don't get me wrong. You're never going to. You're not guaranteed anything unless you're one of these nepo babies who your dad was chief. Okay, apparently the rules don't matter to you, but that still doesn't mean that you won't end up in a good unit if you're an active guy. I didn't think I'd ever be in Intel, but I still worked towards it with that being the long-term goal, and it worked out. So what I'm saying is just work hard, and you may not end up in the unit you wanted to, but more than likely you're going to end up in an equally great unit. Okay. So that you shouldn't get discouraged by the fact that you may not get exactly be the guy, coming down the ropes. Who knows? You may end up being the guy in scuba or the guy in, some other great unit. You just gotta keep working towards the goal, So
Oh yeah, 100%. I always said, dude, I didn't know anybody on the job, so and I could have went anywhere I wanted. I just, I made a name for myself. People depended on me. They knew that I was competent and I would do what they asked of me, and I was able to be proficient and I could communicate properly. I never felt like that I couldn't go anywhere. I didn't think I could get there overnight. I mean, it might take me 2-3 years, but I could get there,
Yeah,
Oh.
Mikey. Yeah, Mikey G, you gotta have hope, bro. You don't necessarily need the hook. Let me tell you. For instance, in a precinct, you have the intel office. Work hard and get into special teams, special ops, and then try and get into that unit. Okay, and that unit is a great way to get into intel. Okay, it's a great way. And again, you may not get to the exact unit you want in the department, but there are plenty other great units too. So you can't just say, "Oh, I'm not gonna get there. Whatever. I'm just gonna, you know, go along to get along, or just meander, in the job. You got to keep working towards the end game. Otherwise, you're gonna have a miserable career ahead of you."
Yep. You might not get a discretionary promotion, but you could get that. You know what I mean? Like I can't help you with the discretion. If you got 15 G's, I know somebody.
Well, you could do that too. Right.
But at least I heard it.
Yeah.
Danny says, "What about Madry's couch? You could get the Cast for Ass program, bro. You know, I could get my dream of being the commanding officer of the photography unit. You know, I just got to deal with that sweaty leather. You know, but the AC is good and the AC is good up there. So
You may have to wear a dress for that. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Let's not have another discussion. Let's get out of here. 500 people this morning. Appreciate all you guys. Appreciate everybody for being there. Missed the 10-4 Tavern. We'll get Eric back soon, and we'll keep rocking out. Check out Executive Perspective tonight. Chief Morales, Ernie Morales will be on there. So that should be a good show. Make sure you join us 5:05 p.m. All right, people. We're out of here. Find us Unfiltered. We'll be back at you.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?